Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to the Inside Scoop tonight. I'm Nicolette Dividar, your host this evening. Community, or rebuilding a sense of community on local level, is getting increasingly important, as we all see and feel right now. In fact, COVID has shown us that community is exactly what we as humans need. And I'm talking of real community, physical communities, not just virtual communities that are nothing but a cheap replacement of the real interaction, as I think most of us have learned. It's a different merging of energies, the dynamic one feels when being around people. Community, by the way, the word embeds communion, the word union, in other words, coming together for a reason. So when we talk about building sustainable communities from the ground up post-COVID, we need to address an important issue that is commonly neglected and kind of went out of fashion a bit: the physical get-together to celebrate being alive, dancing. Ancient societies have long discovered and celebrated the power of dance and its positive healing effects on body and spirit. In rituals, all of our ancestors would come together and express the emotions of their bodies and their soul, feeling a positive energy flow, calling it chi and other names for it, consciously experiencing the flow of life, get more into the rhythm. There are ample studies how dance can help release trauma, stress, energy blockages. It helps us ground us and also reconnects us. In America, we've lost a bit this tradition, I feel. Many people don't even know how to dance. Others want to, but might feel a bit rusty and blocked, and yet others might be too shy to start or know sort of where to go. So tonight, we want to look at how dance is an important pillar of community rebuilding from the ground up and how you can benefit from it. Joining me here in the studio is C. Rios. She is a musician, artist, and empowerment coach who found back to dance during COVID to re-find a sense of community herself, an active member of the DC Dance DMV, such as Ecstatic Dance, Contact Improv, 5 Rhythms, C Voices Dance through song and dance play shops, scream therapy, movement meditation, and laughter yoga. And joining me on Zoom tonight is Nil Axelioglu, a sex, love, and relationship coach, member of the Conscious Dance community in DC. She is also one who discovered dance and movement as a community building tool, amazing tool to improve one's relationship with oneself, in one way of looking at this. So in this first segment, I want to start with you, C. I'm very, very curious to hear about how did you actually re-find your way into dance?
Well, let me tell you that the pandemic was, I don't need to tell you how crazy the pandemic was, but, it was around the time when the winter was coming and my weekly hikes were starting to dwindle, and I was just feeling like I needed to do something with all of my energy. And I was actually moving through a lot of grief. A good friend of mine was dying of cancer, and just so many difficulties that came up with the pandemic and just fall, going inwards and everything. So I found myself putting on music and just starting to move because I didn't know what to do with all of my grief, with all of my big emotions. And it was really, in isolation of the pandemic that I found that, oh my God, I need to move. I need to move my body. I need to get in touch with what's inside and what wants to come out.
So that all started naturally?
Yeah.
So how do we envision that? You were in the kitchen and suddenly you felt like you wanted to move?
So, yeah, I was pretty much just, pretty stagnant, just sitting around being like, I need to move. And, being a musician, I thought, well, I'll just put some music on and move. And before I knew it, I was choreographing dance that I didn't even know that I could do, like real soulful, like tear-jerking, emotive. I was crying. It was just very visceral and very real and very human. And then it was when I moved to DC and started to from Alexandria and started to go to ecstatic dance, 5 rhythms.
What is ecstatic dance? So I'm very curious, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I bet actually our viewers want to know that too. What is ecstatic dance?
Yeah, so ecstatic dance, it's a type of conscious dance. And conscious dance means dancing with intention. So dancing with mindfulness of how am I breathing, how am I moving, what am I needing and what am I wanting.
So do you focus on one particular thing at a time? For example, breathing, and then when you go, your intent, let's say for when you start dancing, is you focus on breathing while you dance?
Some people like to warm up like that.
Okay.
Ecstatic dance, the nice thing about ecstatic dance is that there are no hard rules, except for no talking. So when you walk onto the dance floor, you really just want to move. And even just standing still and feeling the vitality of the micro movements of your vitality, that counts as movement. And so it's really just expressing yourself however your body wants to move, and just enjoying it.
So then how did you find the rest of the community? Because you see people, so you started at home, you felt sort of, you got back into this, and then where was the point when you actually said, at this point I need to go out and be with other people?
Yeah, you know, one of my friends invited me, it was actually to, before I went to ecstatic dance, I actually did contact improv, which is also another really interesting form of dance.
So that's a different type of dance?
Yeah.
What is that?
So contact improv is similar to ecstatic dance in the way that there is no like right or wrong way to do it. You know, it's really following your body's instincts, following the energy, but it brings other people into the space in a sense where we can move together.
So it's more like a playful dance?
Yeah, it's definitely more playful. It can involve, think of it like a Ouija board. You know, like with a Ouija board, you kind of put your hand on it and it kind of takes you where, you know, you don't really lead it necessarily. So when you're kind of doing contact, you can kind of play with where's the energy taking us naturally. So it's the interaction between people.
But that also means that at that point you have to be able to let yourself in a way fully go, right? So you can actually be open to the other person and loosen all the inhibitants and the stiffness and really follow whoever that person is, who you may know or you may not know.
Yes,
right?
That's a great point. So yeah, you definitely have to be very in touch with your own sense of self first. And then from there, opening to listening to someone else. Yeah.
That so that to me though, would you say for that's already like it sounds like it's already like a little bit more advanced. So coming out of COVID, I know most of us were really stiff. I also got back into dance. Modern dance.
Oh, cool.
And it was a very similar thing for me, but I will say I at least did feel a sense of intimidation at first, and when you get the first time back out, because you thought like, I don't know, even just choosing like where we're gonna go. Am I looking for advanced? Am I gonna look for beginner? No, I'm really not a beginner. So the question is, you know, where would you go? And so I thought for first going in, so contact improv sounds to me like it's something best that you get probably most out when you're at a point where you're already kind of loosen up a little bit and ready to go with the flow, or not quite?
I would say that anyone can do contact improv, and I think that it's about having a teacher that really warms up the space, and I think that's one of the things about dance is that we all innately know how to dance, and so the idea that only dancers dance is completely fabricated, because you look at babies and, you know, babies can't help but dance.
That's
it's just part of our DNA, you know, when we feel something, we move, you know? And so contact improv and ecstatic dance are types of dance that kind of remind you of what you already know. It just gives you permission to do it.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so you went after this, then you went to the conscious dance movement.
Ecstatic dance.
Ecstatic dance.
Yeah.
And then you started the going there regularly. So how do we actually imagine this? So there's DC. Are there people from all sorts of backgrounds and walks of life?
Yeah, all ages.
Is it like mixed, all ages?
Yeah.
Is it so? It's really all ages.
It's really all ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing.
So how, when people go in there, do you have their new people like every week? How often do you do this? Like every week? More
I
than a
try.
week?
I try to go every week. I can't say that I do, but there are new people constantly coming in. Like recently, I helped facilitate one for the first time, and I did an opening. And I would say about 1/3 of the people there were doing it for the first time.
Okay, when you say you help facilitate it, take us through the process. Like how would we, and I know you at home are interested in that too, how would we imagine this? So when you go there, what happens then?
So what I did is a little spin off of 5 rhythms, because ecstatic dance is free form. It's like, go, just do whatever. And 5 rhythms is a little bit more intentional in the sense of, how can I be mindful? It's like a movement meditation of sorts, and moving people through different emotions or just noticing different parts of the body and starting there. So it might be notice your feet and move through the space leading from your foot, and just noticing how that changes the way you move through space. And it's playful, which is really juicy and exciting and welcoming if you've never tried it before, or if you're just getting into dance again.
So how do you feel afterwards? Like when you walk out?
Relaxed, joyful. It's almost euphoric, because depending on what you're going through when you show up, because the community is very welcoming in the sense of, doesn't matter what you show up with. If you're crying, if you're sad, if you're angry, you know, you just get it out on the dance floor. And just the process of moving through the emotions of being human leaves you with this lightness. You're just like, ah.
So it's literally this sighing sort of that comes off your shoulders when you do that. Well, we're already done with the first segment. Don't go away, because I do want to talk more about how dance actually helps us deal with our emotions and the stress. And you know that now we're in those times. Actually, this is probably one of the most stressful times all of us have been in. So we need to learn how to deal with that and come together as a community. So don't go away.
I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead.
I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
See ya. You never mean you're well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop tonight. I'm Nicolette de Vidar, your host this evening. In this upcoming segment, we want to talk about how dance can actually help bridge culture and how it affects us and possibly our relationship. So with me tonight in the second segment is our second guest. She's joining us via Zoom. And I want to ask Neil very similar questions in the first. I'm first interested to know, Neil, how did you get into dancing?
Hi, hello, thank you for having me. Actually, dancing for me has been a lifelong journey. I did more organized dance when I was younger, through elementary school and high school, and then I'm a child of the 80s, and so I went to a lot of Grateful Dead concerts, which is where I first learned to like really allow my body to go in free form without any kind of judgment. Everybody was just so accepting at those concerts, and throughout my life, I went and explored different dance floors in many live music settings. So dance has always been a way that I process emotions, a way that I connect to my body, a way that I kind of get out of my head and into my body so that I can really like feel what is present, and it brings me so much joy. So it's a huge source of joy for me. Mm-hmm. And then back around 2019, I was going through a really big divorce. I have 3 kids, and it was a 20-plus year marriage. And I was just at this precipice of my life, like, okay, I need to start coming out of like the mom bubble, you know, like everything of my neighborhood and small kids. And dancing, again, was so important to me that I just started taking myself to like 9:30 club shows. And like, I would just go by myself, sometimes with my sister, just to move my body and be in live music because I loved it so much. And then through the yoga community that I belong in up here in Rockville, Maryland, where I live, I had a few friends that I was seeing going to this thing called ecstatic dance. And I was like, what is that? That just seems so weird. You know, like what? You really like show up and we can't talk. There's like no shoes, no booze, no talking on the dance floor, as C was mentioning. And so it took me some courage.
So everyone goes barefoot on there?
Typically, unless you have like dance shoes, like most people, it's requested to be barefoot because a lot of people get on the floor sometimes, and so it's really full free self-expression. And so if you have like orthopedic shoe that you need, that's usually okay. But most people, we don't dance with the shoes. It's complete connection to the ground, to your body, so that you're not losing any kind of connection there. It's
a lot more liberating, actually, isn't it?
It really is, and I feel like you really get into your body more, you know, and so like one week I had found these things on Facebook. Events was popping back then in 2019, and I didn't know anybody. I just showed up, and I went to like 5 Rhythms, ecstatic dance, and another dance group called Daybreaker, which is a little bit not doing as much now, but every month they used to have this Daybreaker dance, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. They would have these huge dance parties in the middle of DC to rise with the sun and dance during like the sunrise.
Now, is 5 Rhythms something different than what we just heard earlier?
So 5 Rhythms, I think C was mentioning it earlier, it's very similar to ecstatic dance in the sense that there's absolutely no talking, so that you could be fully in your process. It's a place to really express yourself, full expression of self, all of your emotions, everything that's going on the dance floor. And the difference between ecstatic and 5 Rhythms, in our DC area, we have an amazing facilitator, Ann Kite, who I love and is so close to my heart. And she actually will guide you with a mic and kind of invite you into different places in your body, just to explore and continuously invite you to come out of the head and into your body. So many of us, you know, will be on the dance floor, of course, processing things, grief, sadness, joy, whatever's going on. And then you get stuck in the loop, and then you forget why you're even there. And so she'll continuously invite you with a microphone back into your body, feeling different things. Sometimes just stopping you in the middle of class to just pair up with whoever's next to you in the moment, maybe 3 people. So it's like a lot of guidance that you can be in your own emotion and in your own process and receive a little bit of structure, where ecstatic is much more, you're there to really just express yourself for 2 hours with a DJ. But, you know, there's no drinks. You know, we go to nightclubs and stuff. The reason I didn't like it so much anymore is like people are drinking and drinks are sloshing around. I'm just there to dance. And these places were so liberating for me because I could drop into my body and not worry about people drinking or being out all night long because they're always at like good hours in the evening.
Can you tell actually if someone is trying to express grief or loss or something I mean, primarily you're focused on yourself, right? You're there to express your own emotions. But my point is, do you sometimes then also you must be picking up the energies of other people?
Yeah, of course. You can see people having their own processes, but I feel like there's always, at least for me, I can just share my embodied experience. I always give people the space that they need to go through their own processes, because sometimes even if you're in your own process at home and somebody tries to come console you, it kind of takes you out of your process because now you have to kind of be with that person unless you're, you know, open to sharing.
Yeah.
And so the beautiful thing about dancing is that everyone gives each other their space, and nobody will ever infringe upon you if you're crying unless you feel like you need help, and people will immediately come and support you. But in general, I found, and I have cried rivers on the Five Rhythms dance floor, and I'm always left to my own process. I'm left to my own, like, because it comes in waves, you know, like you're able to feel the entire wave of emotion. You're able to remove the entire stress cycle that's coming up in your body without having to like even feel responsible for the person who's trying to help you, you know, because as we're all people pleasers, we start worrying about the people who are even there trying to assist us, you know. So people give each other space, I feel like, when they're going through.
What would you say is the most beneficial for you when you go and participate in the dance? What would you say if you had to list like 2 or 3 things? What would those be when you say, you know, this is really the immediate benefit that I took out from it, when I could feel it on my health, on my mind, whatever that is?
Yeah, you know, there's, in addition to kind of like the conscious dance, you know, name, there's a big theme of movement as medicine, which has been very true in my body. So, you know, I have also lost both my parents. So I've gone through lots of big grief, and those big grieving moments I've processed on the dance floor, like single-handedly have been there, you know, feeling the energy of my parents. So that is one takeaway for me, is like I've processed really big grief in the container, especially of Five Rhythms. And the second thing is absolutely ecstaticness, right? The joy, the euphoria when you move your energy and you get embodied, and you, instead of going in your mind and like ruminating over what's in the head, like getting into your body and moving it energetically and allowing like that life force to flow and just whatever is there, because energy, you know, emotion is energy in motion, right? So you allow that to just keep moving through your body, and then you come to this place of like liberation and ease and peace and ecstaticness, or maybe it's just tenderness, you know, like you never know what the dance is going to greet you with at the end, but you're just open to whatever is there.
Yeah. So in a way, actually, you take it out of your head, so to speak, and go right into the lower parts of your body, which is the healing movement, right? And also what goes through the blockages. I want to talk with both of you in the next segment a little bit more about that, so we understand the process. But I have also a question for you, Neil. So when you started out there, we talked about both of you had a little dance experience and interest, and I know a lot of people, for viewers at home also, they really think like they haven't been dancing for so long. And when we hear that everyone had an interest in dance, when you go to a dance community, usually people are into dancing. I can't emphasize this enough, because I really think that a lot of people are kind of still at this place where they're just that shy. There's this shy factor. So I want to hear from you, Neil. Were there people who were complete beginners, who maybe have never danced in their life?
So if they show up to the ecstatic dance floor, you mean? Like, so of course, like anything in life, there needs to be a willingness, right? So whoever's showing up, if you've never danced in your life, as C was saying, we are all innate dancers. That energy is there within each one of us. But if somehow you willingly showed up to this ecstatic dance floor, it's such a welcoming space. Ecstatic dance happens almost every Thursday night in Washington, D.C., near the Brookland Metro. You can go look on Facebook, Ecstatic Dance DC, and they'll have their events listed there. And so there's no it's just if you can imagine a community center with an open space and a DJ, and possibly if you get there early enough for the kind of like warm up, that's great. Often I don't even show up to that because I'm running late, so I just jump in. I'll be in the corner doing some stretching, some yoga, and then allow my body to start moving. So if you've never danced before in your life, I mean, I'm sure everyone has danced before in their lives, but not in like this kind of like intentional way. I really invite you just to check it out if it's something that's calling to you, because no one is there checking, no one's asking, nobody knows until the very end when we kind of have a big community circle. They'll always ask who's here for the first time. At the very end, people raise their hands. So there's no like hierarchy. You just show up and you get into your body. You could just sit there in the corner and be a spectator for the entire time if you're new and you just want to be in the energy of the space. And that's so welcome. So
and
all
maybe
of it
that's
is
a way to get over this, right? Maybe that's a way to get into this if you actually go there and be a spectator for a while.
Yeah, and like when I first started, as much as I've danced my whole life, I was like, this is so weird. Like, I don't think I'm just gonna go, and if I don't like it, I'm gonna leave. You know, I gave myself that permission. You know, like I'm just gonna check it out. And of course, I stayed, and I went to all these other dance events in the same week, and I'm now like, And it's a beautiful part of the community because Ecstatic specifically and Five Rhythms. At the end, they hold kind of like, you know, after everybody settles down, the music's over, there's a community time and people can chit chat with one another. And it really is all ages.
Yeah.
I just took my college daughter a couple weeks ago. She's 19.
Yeah. So. Of course, I'm going to have to ask you this since you are a sex, love, and relationship coach. How does dancing affect relationships? And that's going to have to be brief, but we'll pick it up in the next segment. Okay. Give us just the nutshell for now.
Dancing is like such a beautiful way to get into your sensuality. So I feel like it's just like an opportunity to get really into your body. Once you stop thinking about it and you just start dropping into your senses and letting that like kind of sensual energy flow, it's a beautiful way to expand your feeling of sexiness, your feeling of feeling good in your body, because no one's there to judge you. The minute you look around and everyone's doing their own thing, no one's paying attention, you have full permission to get into your body and really express yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a beautiful way to work emotions out if you're in a relationship and you're having, you know, conflict or something, and a way to get really in touch with your sensuality, with your sexual energy, and like just play with that. You know, it's a play zone, it's a play space for that kind of energy, and it's a safe space for that because nobody's like paying attention or bothering you or doing anything like that.
Right. So it's mainly the playfulness and then the reconnecting with yourself, right? This actually knowing your own sensuality. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's no like need to connect with anyone unless you want to go into a contact dance, and you always have the permission to say no. But it's an opportunity to connect to your own sensuality. I mean, that's
this
for
is
me.
Wonderful. That's actually a great ending for the second segment. So when we return, we want to discuss why dance has such an effect on us and how it actually bypasses most of the brain and helps us really get more into the zone so we can go a little bit more with the flow. And then we also want to talk, of course, why it's such an essential piece for building sustainable communities from the ground up. Stay with us.
There. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Can I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it. What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuff.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop in this third segment here. Life happens in communities, dialogue happens in human interaction. I guess the best human interaction happens in dance, or at least one of the best. And why that's the case and how it affects us is what I want to discuss tonight with my two guests, one in studio guest and one on Zoom, and I want to dive right in. We talked in the last segment, I'm going to call on Neil on this one, a little bit about how the conscious dance movement also helps improve relationships. So that question is going to go for both. We're going to start with Neil on this one. You said, Neil, that it's mainly the letting go. How much does actually the relationship to yourself play a role in that?
You know, that's a great question. And I feel like the relationship to self is everything. Even as, you know, the work that I do as a sex, love, and relationship coach, it's not even ever really about being with someone else. It's all about being with the self. How much compassion can we source for ourselves? How much love can we source for ourselves? How turned on can we make ourselves? How much pleasure can we feel in ourselves? And so when you're in a conscious dance floor, you're not being distracted, because even in intimacy, distraction, disassociation, numbing out, checking out, all of these things are so alive in our communities, in our bedrooms, in our, you know, partnerships. And so the dance floor, the conscious dance floor, it's removing the distraction of having to keep up a conversation with people. It's removing the distraction of people drinking, and, you know, it's a sober event. And so it's really an opportunity to be with yourself, be with whatever emotion is with you, allow that to be amplified, allow that to be released. So it's a constant working with self, you know, whether that's your joy and you're ecstatic and you're feeling so lit up and you're like lighting up the dance floor, or if you're grieving in the corner and crying and processing a huge piece of grief or anger, whatever it is, it's like an opportunity to be on your own. Even though you're in community, you're being supported by the energy of everybody around you and the music, but you're having your own solo process and that time of going inwards without being distracted by others.
Now, see, you're an empowerment coach. What role does dance play in empowerment?
Well, I think Nil spoke to it really well as well. You know, you have to really value what is going on inside. And you have to really say, hey, I matter. And if I'm feeling pent up, then I need to look at that. And I need to know that I'm worth paying attention to. How can I feel like I deserve other people's attention if I can't give myself the attention that I need? And how can I expect to feel empowered if I can't know how important it is to pause and listen and process and just really just love myself, love the way I move, and also be okay with the process of getting there. Because we're basically, everything about capitalism has taught us that we are not enough. Every single
you need to buy something to fill that hole inside you, right? And you need more. Yes.
Exactly. We need to buy something. We need to eat something. We need to drink something to fix ourselves because there's something wrong with us, right? Yeah. So the idea is, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I am exactly where I need to be and exactly how I should be, I must be. This makes sense given everything that I'm experiencing. Feeling the way I am now makes total sense.
So it is in a way allowing yourself to be happy and joyful.
That too, yes.
Because I think for a lot of us, and I bet for you at home actually, if you ask yourself that question, it happens to a lot more people than people think, this allowing yourself to be happy and joyful and don't feel that you need to justify or defend or do something for who you are, independent of where your political opinions are, independent of where you stand. But it's really this allowing yourself to be. Does that fall in that category?
Yes. And how often do we feel like we need to stifle ourselves when we're just overflowing with joy? And it's a wonderful practice to just be joyful and be loud and be big and take up space, especially for female, people who are raised as female. We're always taught to be small and to, not take up too much space. So it's really empowering to say, you know what, I can take up as much space as I want and I can dance around this space and feel joyful.
Actually, that's a really, really good point that I want to talk about. Neil, I want to bring you back on this one because this taking up space and the movement. So when you think about the dance floor, yes, we might, and nightclubs have taught us that in a way too, right? You dance like in your spot. But when you compare that actually to previous forms of dancing or even some folk dances, they were traveling when they were dancing over the floor. So there was always this space component in there that I think we've lost a little bit more in these later movements when you have people cramped in nightclubs and you can't really move. So how much does the space component play a role or is expressed through the relationship to yourself when you actually move through the floor?
Yeah, I feel that same way too, and that's like one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to move my dance off of the kind of nightclub dance floors, because you are like, you can't really move. And in ecstatic and 5 rhythm specifically, you have the entire dance floor to rotate around. And in 5 rhythms, you'll be guided to keep moving. Actually, you're not even supposed to really be standing all the time in one space. You can do whatever you want, of course, but the guidance invitation is always to move. Like find a space, find a space, which is encouraging that taking up of space, and like the empowerment piece comes from there. I feel like, it's like when you know that exactly what C was saying, that you are enough and that you have permission to be here because you're giving yourself permission, not because the speaker, the facilitator, or the music, like you are allowing yourself to be whole and recognize your wholeness in your dance, in your emotions, in the person that you are and that you're becoming. And moving spaces, just like you're mentioning, like folk dance and other dances where they take up all of the space and travel around, is such an important component. And now when I'm on dance floors where I feel stifled in my space, it really is, it's so different. It doesn't have even close to the impact on my emotional and like mental health in that moment if I'm trying to process something than I do if I can just move my energy and take up space like that.
It's almost a little bit connected in breathing in and breathing out freely, right?
Yeah, and that's something that you can take off the dance floor too.
Yeah.
When you're out and you're in line in the grocery store and you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling so anxious. You can just roll your shoulders and you roll your wrists and breathe, and that comes from yoga too. I think a lot of people access that from yoga, but just movement.
One important part we need to talk about, the self-confidence part in the dance, when you take up the floor and when you move. Where does self-confidence go into all of this? And that's for both of you, so everyone wants to take it first. You want to take this first? Where does that go in?
Yeah, I think that, it's a process. It's a process of feeling like you deserve to take up space. And then once you begin to unfold and expand, it's like, it just washes over you. Like, oh, I'm safe. It's okay. Everything's okay. No one's judging me. I can do this. And then just doing that over time becomes a practice where even off the dance floor, you just walk differently, you move differently. Yeah. You're listening to your body and you're giving your body what it needs. And sometimes it's a small adjustment, but just knowing that you have the power to do that for yourself just is life-changing.
So I think that does play a big role just in terms of how we move and how we get to know the body and how you develop it. Now, did you notice in your own experience that your self-confidence grew over time?
Definitely.
Yes?
Yeah.
Neil, when you work with in your practice, for example, and you work with people as a coach, for example, do you also notice, like, when they start doing dance movements together, can you actually see that the confidence grows and that maybe they are more they're better able to communicate with one another in a non-verbal way?
Yeah, I mean, the dance component in my practice is not necessarily so alive unless I'm leading a group and we take like a dance break just to get into our bodies. So everything that I lead always starts with a dance party in the beginning. So that is so that you can release all of the stuff in your mind and just get into your body and get into your juiciness, your sensuality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure as far as like within the container of my coaching necessarily dancing, other than having them like hip circling and getting into your body that way and just understanding like more subtle movements of dance versus like, what we're talking about as far as like a community dance. It's a little bit different, But absolutely the breathing and the moving and the sounding is exactly what I lead and guide my clients through, is a container of space to do that kind of breath work, that kind of movement, but just more, localized on your own versus like in a big community space.
Yeah, I can definitely.
So you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So my fascination with dance also comes with song and with
'Cause you're an artist,
ritual.
you're a musician.
I'm a musician, and my favorite things to lead are finding your voice workshops. And so one of the workshops that I lead is finding your nonverbal voice, and it's all about nonverbal communication and expression and listening, right? So yeah, there is this amount of presencing that happens when we're in tune with our own bodies and we're listening to our own bodies, so we can receive the input of other people, so we can really be present with ourselves and really be present with others. And this amazing thing happens where we're able to communicate so much when we slow down and when we're just present with ourselves and with each other. And it's really healing. It's really powerful. And having moved through so much grief and in so many situations during the pandemic where I felt alone, realizing that the idea that grief and suffering is something that we experience on the individual level is a myth. And if we look to other cultures that have more, experience with ritual and sharing communal grief, we understand that grief, just like joy, just like all of these things that we experience,
is an expression.
It's something that we're all experiencing together. And so in my rituals, we really just slow down and get to presence with that we are communicating and moving through these human experiences together. And that is how community happens,
Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that in the next segment, actually. So when we come back, we continue our talk about how dance is actually necessary for building sustainable communities. But what's important to know is also in terms of, we talked a little bit first, why dance, how you can get in, for whom it is. And in this next segment, I want to get more to the community aspect and how it can actually help us overcome these divisions and move forward. Stay with us.
Hi! Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too.
We're back to the inside.
Hi! Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to to the drama. Only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, what you turn the other
Ma'am,
cheek.
you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid. Donut?
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm Nicolette de Vidar. We're in the last segment tonight, and we do want to talk about how dance matters actually as we build sustainable communities from the ground up, particularly post-COVID. So we have only 13 minutes left. I really want to dive in right away to the community building part, which we haven't talked about yet. So we heard in the previous segments about why dance. We heard about how both of you got into dance, the Zoom guest and the studio guest. We heard a little bit what it does to the body and what it does to the relationship. We didn't quite address yet why it bypasses the brain, but I'll get to that aspect. And I think it's very closely linked actually to why dance is such a great way of building a community. So let me ask you, and that question goes to both of you, but I start with you since I have you already here. See, when you start branching out and moving, traveling across the floor, taking up space, being self-confident, etc., in a world or in a time where everyone is so cautious in not treading on someone else's feet because you might offend someone by doing something. In fact, you might offend someone by just breathing too loud. How is this handled with the dance movement, particularly in a community where there's all type of people?
Yeah, and expression happens in so many ways. And one of the beautiful things about the community is that everything is welcome. And there is this culture of acceptance and curiosity. So there's a spectrum from curiosity to judgment. And a lot of what we learn is to be critical. Like, why is someone acting that way and getting upset? But we have the opportunity to be curious instead. It's like, that's interesting. You're an interesting person. And so we foster that on the dance floor. And so as we are choosing to be vulnerable, because it is very vulnerable to just put yourself out there and just move.
Yes, I can second that, actually, yes.
And just move however your impulses tell you. You know, that vulnerability met with curiosity, met with acceptance, met with mirroring, because other people are like, ooh, that move looks fun, and then mirroring you. That coming together, being vulnerable together is what fosters intimacy.
And probably also being a little intimidated to start out with helps, I would think, because then everyone is sort of like a little bit more in this open, vulnerable space to begin with.
Yeah, it's human to be vulnerable. It's human to be intimidated. It's human to be scared. And so all of these things are just what we find everyone feels too. Yeah.
Neil, what is your take on that?
On what was the question again that you were asking?
So the question is, how does this actually help? How does dance help us build community? So particularly when you have, as you mentioned, when you go to the conscious dance movement, there is no talk, which is a good thing because people can't really talk. It's really just your bodies that speak, right? So that might help. But here's the other thing. So how does that actually help people accept one another through dance versus when nowadays we're in a time where it's almost sometimes it could be even too much. When somebody breathes too loud, some people can get offended by that. So how does this help bypass all of this and get to a space where we all you come to acceptance and, as C just said, like curiosity of the other person?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just in the name of conscious dance floor, just the conscious part of it. It's the awareness, the self-awareness, awareness of other people's processes, awareness of the space, and the deep-rooted intention that you're showing up there to be in this space intentionally, right? When we go to a nightclub or a bar or something, like anything goes there. When you show up to a conscious dance floor, there's kind of like this already like this embedded, I feel like at least what I feel in my heart, is this embedded respect for one another, respect for people's sovereignty, for their space, for their self-expression. So for me, of course, the breathing, if you're going to be in a dance floor, everyone's going to be breathing, everyone's going to be sweating on top of each other. There has to be that willingness already within self. So there's already work being done before you even arrive within yourself. You're already having to source within yourself this kind of energy to move yourself forward and show up into this space. As Zee was saying, everybody's vulnerable. We're all having our moments of insecurities. This is also natural and so normal in the human experience. And before you even show up for your first time, there a lot of work, just to get there in that space. And then the community is built because of this mutual acceptance of everybody, of this mutual co-creation energy, this energy of wanting to create something together. There's an energy of wanting to create community with one another, and sharing each other's experiences and getting curious and being open-minded. And we have a beautiful festival actually coming up, and I know Zee can talk to this more as well. She's a big part of the community there as well. But Interfusion in January, just want to give a big shout out, which has so many different dance floors. I know we've just been talking right now about ecstatic and conscious dance community, but there's like Zouk and Bachata and like all these different dance floors that you can get engaged with. That
are they all in the same building?
Yes.
It's in Virginia. It'll be in every year. It's in Virginia over, I think it's the MLK weekend, like 3 or 4 day dance festival. Dance and mindfulness, yoga, all kinds of things, but just an opportunity to build, again, community. The community, the structure is there, and you just have to show up. You just have to be present. That's all you have to do. Just show up, and the rest is just there waiting to unfold for you.
Now, I would think, though, when you talk about conscious dance particularly, I would suspect that at first this rings more with women or among the female community. Is that what you see in the community that's there, or is it really like mixed?
It's very mixed.
It's very mixed.
It's very mixed. And actually, as someone who identifies as non-binary, I really appreciate the whole spectrum of presentation of gender. I've found that gender is a social construct, and it's what, we're taught that girls are like this and boys are like that. And on the dance floor, you can move however your body wants to move and authentically express yourself. And if you're male-bodied, you can dance femininely. And if you're female, you can dance like a warrior. And, it's, anything goes and all is welcome. And it's a wonderful place to explore your authentic self. And I want to speak a little bit.
Along with all the different aspects as well.
Yeah, along with all the different aspects. And I wanted to also bring up Interfusion again because...
So it's actually called Interfusion?
Interfusion.
Did you hear that at home? Interfusion, and it's in January?
It's in January, and I'm actually the director of conscious communications at Interfusion this year. And aside from dance, there's so many other things happening. Like you can learn more about how to have a healthier relationship, or how to communicate better, how to have better family communication skills.
So it goes beyond the non-verbal movement. It actually then translates into how do we get into better relationships in general.
Yeah, and mindfulness and yoga and acro yoga and all sorts of things. So it's definitely my favorite local festival.
And you said this is in Virginia? Where?
It's I believe it's in Arlington.
Arlington.
Yeah.
So actually easy to get to for everyone who's out there. And we might actually bring this up a little bit more. So, and would that be a good starting point for someone to get into that space?
Well, I would say there are things happening sooner. So actually, there is a wonderful thing coming up. Porangi is a wonderful performance artist that a lot of people will be going to. If you want to have an immersive experience far sooner than January, that's coming up soon. And
okay, describe an immersive experience. What will we expect?
You can expect people expressing themselves authentically through dance, through singing. You can expect it to be interactive. I haven't seen him perform before, but I have friends who have said it's the best performance they have seen in their lives, and they've seen a lot of performances. So this is something really special that, you know, if you're ready to jump into a whole new world of movement and expression, that's coming up soon. So that's a good one. A good one to start with.
Okay.
Also, I do weekly workshops and play shops and finding your voice.
What's the difference between a play shop and a workshop?
So a play shop is all about jumping in and playing and having fun and getting curious and leaving your inner critic at the door. It's less like work and more like play.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this one that's coming up this Sunday is going to be actually more of a ritual, because I do rituals as well. It's going to be a grief ritual. So, you know, whether it's grieving life transitions or a divorce or a loss, you know, you can show up and experience the communal sense of witnessing and feeling things together in a way that goes through a whole range of emotions from grief to joy.
That's awesome. That actually brings up one important point, and we only have about 1.5 minutes left. I do want to talk about this. And Neil, I'm bringing you back in there because we have not talked about how dance helps you with releasing trauma, and it has to be super, super quick. But let's talk about this for a moment.
Yeah, actually, I will use my experience through 5 Rhythms. Ann Kite had this workshop series called the Heartbeat Series, in which we process every weekend. One weekend was fear, anger, joy, and sadness, I think. And every single weekend, we would act out whatever that emotion is that we were working on. She would set us up and to feel it into our bodies and actually really be able to connect with it and move it within our bodies and release trauma in that way. That's actually one of the most powerful forms of trauma release that I have done to date, to be honest with you. It's a very somatic release. But with guidance, with space holding, I really recommend it being that kind of release being done with a really experienced facilitator.
I agree. So final word, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me and also all of the people that we described and all of the workshops and play shops and events that we described by texting the number.
Yep, just say it right in.
That will be coming up on the screen.
No, just talk it in.
Oh.
Say it.
Oh, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Okay, so we'll handle this. So you can actually come to my Facebook page or my Twitter, and I'll display the number where you can go and find more information on that, because we're out of time. Thank you, both of you, for coming on. Great to have you. Thank you so much for watching. As I said, you heard it. It's really important to sort of get into the flow of life and go with the dance. And you have a wonderful evening. We see you next week. Have a good night. This set already off before the music was still on.
That's okay.
Oh boy. So
they can go to my thing. We'll put it in on the YouTube version.
You can say goodbye to the guests.
Oh, bye, Neil. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good job. See you later. Ciao.
Ciao.
You can text me. Actually, I can text.